Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Chad. Did you enjoy that USA basketball, my friend?
Oh, dude. I'm so sad that the Olympics are over. I love them.
Yeah.
You and I talked about Gold Zone, which it felt like we were just getting into rhythm for NFL season. Um, but man, I have watched every angle that anyone has put on social media about that last Steph Curry shot. He was so pure and so joyful and so good at something that is so hard. It is exactly why he belongs in the conversation for top 10 players of all time. And I feel like if there was any debate, this game settled it.
Yeah, and it was also just like the cherry on the top, right, of this last 20 years of LeBron, Durant to Steph. It's like if you're an NBA fan, those were the guys. And I think it's Tops. They're putting out some type of card with the three of them on there. And it's
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
everyone's going
Cool.
crazy right about it. And I get it. Like if you're a basketball fan, I know basketball has plenty of haters and it's fun to be a hater, but the true basketball fans, that's like those are the guys. Like we know that not that we're about to go into a down period here, but we really had this crazy run of these crazy stars. And Steph Curry, he just when he wants to be the greatest shooter ever, he can be. And it's like no one could just turn it on and off. If you watch, like you said, you watch those highlights, I don't think he touched the ball from like midway to the third quarter to the final 3 minutes of the game. And then every time he was just
Yeah.
carrying the ball up the court. And it was just like he knew this was his moment. So yeah, as just a fan of the NBA and everything it is, that's that not that he's my favorite player. I think I'd still have LeBron as my favorite player, but Steph Curry, man, like you said, he kind of put himself on that top 10 list, and it's hard to take him off it now.
We have more late breaking news than the Americans winning the gold medal for today's show, which is the sixth installment in our annual NFL Division Preview Series. We are discussing the NFC East. Today, Simon, we are joined by our favorite of the favorites, regular guests, my antagonist on our Sunday morning NFL preview show, Convince Me, which will start again with the first Sunday of the NFL season, available on YouTube and the Action Network app. He is the co-host of the Action Network podcast. He is Chris Raybon. Raybon. What's going on, brother?
What's up, guys? I actually got a question for both of you. Since we're talking about basketball, would you rather go to a Rams-Chargers preseason game or a regular season Sparks-Sky game, with keeping in mind that I haven't seen Angel Reese yet? I've seen Caitlin Clark play already. Which one would you pick?
100% the WNBA game. I've been to a Chargers Rams preseason game with you, and that stadium is amazing. Loved it. Totally loved it. But like there's too much fun stuff happening with the WNBA right now, and the level of intensity is going to be better. The betting is going to be better. The action and crowd is going to be better. I'd like the energy of the WNBA game. Simon.
I mean, obviously, I'm gonna go preseason football. If I'm gonna get my drink on or take a gummy, I'm gonna do the preseason football. But you really can't go wrong either way. But I'm a little biased just because one, that stadium, and Chad knows I love watching the second stringers. It's like it's fun in person, seeing the guys in person, like noticing little things where on TV you can't watch guys after the play. That's what's so great about being in person. So yeah, definitely a tough choice, but I go football.
Yeah, I think it's going to be made for me because I got a brunch at 10 a.m., but I would have to leave it pretty early, or not super early, but somewhat early to get to the Sparks game because it's at 2 and the preseason game's at 4. So I'll probably end up going to the preseason game. But this is the last time Angel Reese is coming to LA, so I did kind of want to see her. So I'm still torn. Probably going to be a game time decision.
That's important enough for you to get up at 10 a.m. That's what I want to know.
I got visitors in town. My couple of my boys from Syracuse, so got to show them around. So yeah, it is very unlike me. I would probably be just knocked out sleeping on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. You are absolutely correct.
We have very important news to discuss before we get into discussing the NFC East. Today it was announced, breaking news. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. JJ McCarthy out for the year, torn meniscus for the Vikings. On the show last week, Simon and I talked about the NFC North. The Vikings 6.5 to the under. We liked it. We also liked potentially the Vikings for the worst record. Raybon, I know you and Stuckey talked about Vikings potentially the last team to win a game on the Action Network podcast going back in May. So first for you, Raybon, how does this impact any of your thinking about the Vikings? Overvalue, undervalue, knowing Sam Darnold's going to be the quarterback, not going to be quarterback controversies. How does this change things for you, if at all?
It really doesn't. Shout to my boy Chris Thompson, who was just texting me saying he's a Vikings fan. He was saying, I can't believe the market hasn't really reacted to this, and the win total is still at 6.5. And I said, honestly, I have both of those quarterbacks rated pretty equally in terms of how they're going to affect the spread. Darnold is a known quantity, and McCarthy does have more upside long term. But as a rookie, especially one that we kind of knew was not going to start from week one, they kind of grade out about the same for me. So no real movement here. I mean, if I'm betting a Vikings win total, I'm leaning under though, because the NFC, I think there's, 8, 9, 10, 11 playoff contenders, and the Vikings are not really one of them, in my opinion. I think they're the worst team in that division. So I do think the Vikings are going to have a rough go at it now. But maybe we get some Nick Mullins and some Jaron Hall at some point too, if Darnold struggles. So just more reason to go with the under for me.
Simon?
I mean, it's pretty simple for me, Chad. The only thing I really fear in life is the unknown, and the unknown was JJ, and that's gone. I know what Sam Darnold is. I think Evan Abrams just tweeted it out. Since he was drafted in 2018, he's the worst quarterback against the spread in all of football. He's 22, 33, and 1, Chad. Like, I get it. People want to be like, oh, he went to Kyle Shanahan, a QB whisperer. He ain't no QB whisperer. He ain't Sean McVay. This is a man that runs a great system. Jimmy G left the 49ers. He just turned back into poop. That's what I think Sam Darnold is going to be. Like, he might win a game here or there, right? We've seen him string together a couple of good quarters. His issue is long-term consistency. And once it goes bad, it starts to go really bad. Like, he unravels really bad. So I get it. Vikings fans are doom and gloom, because how would you not be excited about JJ? What he just did in the preseason, even if preseason is irrelevant to all of us, you can lie to yourself. You can be excited, be like, well, after one turnover, the kid came out, threw 2 touchdowns in a row. He threw for 100 yards. That's exciting. I mean, Sam Darnold came out there, went 4 for 8, and threw an incompletion on 4th and 2 in the red zone. That's him. Like, so that's why I get why most Viking fans are doom and gloom. But I think Sean said it. Like, you will see pundits in the media, and I know plenty of professional bettors who are like, they want to give him this last chance, Sam Darnold this last run, where it's like he could have that Baker season, that Geno Smith season. And I think Chris just said it. It's like, in that division, in the NFC, the wins just aren't there. The competition's too stiff. I don't see how they're gonna have easy games where we went crazy because Geno Smith went 9-8. I will go absolutely crazy if somehow Sam Darnold gets 9-8 with this team. So feeling pretty good in my position, Chad. But yeah, I am shocked. The market has not reacted at all. People seem to believe in Sam Darnold. I'm a total seller on this kid.
By the way, Hoop, like, of all the times you decide to hold back and not get aggressive and abrasive, you decide to go with poop on Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh boy. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Also, quick heads up. Action Network's popular college football podcast, Big Bets on Campus, now has its own YouTube channel. That's right. Raybon's co-host on the Action Network podcast, Stuckey, is also the face of our BBOC YouTube channel. Lord help us. So head to the BBOC channel for YouTube and subscribe for early access to the best college football betting coverage anywhere, or just follow the link in this episode description. I saw Stuckey and Raybon recently, and I was sitting with them, and I looked at them and I thought, I can't believe these are two of the guys that I hitched my freaking career to when I left ESPN and we launched Action Network. It's astonishing to me. Raybon's a big star. Stuckey's got his own YouTube channel. What is this world coming to? All right. Reminder. We're going to the NFC East. In 19 of the past 21 years, 91% of the seasons, an NFL team has gone from worst to first in its division. During our previews, we talked about at least one of those teams that we think has a really good shot, the Bengals. I know Raybon also thinks the Panthers are undervalued and might want to play a long shot on their chances to win the NFC South. In the NFC East, Cowboys finished first. The Commanders finished last. I don't think we're going to see that in this division, but you never know. We're going to run through it. Eagles, shortest odds to win the division right now. They are 15-1 to win the Super Bowl. They are at plus 100 to win the division. Their win total is 10.5. As everybody knows, I like to go through strength of schedule according to futures markets for season win totals, the O-line ranking according to Pro Football Focus, and the D-line ranking according to Pro Football Focus. Right now, Eagles have the 9th easiest schedule, second best O-line ranking, even without Kelsey. People are hoping that Cam Jurgens can move from guard, where he was a middle-of-the-road player, but they still have Jordan Mailata. They have Lane Johnson, 3rd and 13th graded overall at their positions. Big question, how effectively can Jurgens be replacing a Hall of Famer? D-line, final part of the roundup. Let's pour one out for Fletcher Cox. Brilliant career, 6-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, defined this Philly D-line, such a character. We loved Jalen Carter last year, Simon, as Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was the favorite all season until he faded at the end and was taken over by Will Anderson. That was a bit of a kick in the dick. The real question here is, can Jordan Davis take over as the dominant player Fletcher Cox was? And can Bryce Huff be as dominant on the edge as Hassan Reddick? Raybon, while Simon is a massive Eagles fan, you are rocking the old school Randall Cunningham jersey. I give you first crack at assessing the Eagles.
Yeah, I like the Eagles. I think the Eagles are the best bet to win the NFC East at even money. It's probably overall a little bit overvalued just because, it's probably a little more than a 2-team race. I think Washington has a long shot. But if I'm betting any one of these teams, I feel most confident in the Eagles. And that's because they addressed what I think really is, I know you talked about, some of the changes in the trenches, but the Eagles are strong in the trenches. I think they'll be okay. They'll be somewhere from, good to great, even with the changes. I think the big question is, if you watch the Eagles down a stretch last year, I know Simon knows, they couldn't handle the blitz. Jalen Hurts just had no idea what he was doing against the blitz. So they go out. Remember, they had all that coordinator brain drain last year, and they had to switch things up after going to Super Bowl. Both of their coordinators got hired away. So now they go out and they get Kellen Moore, who was, longtime coordinator in Dallas. Then he went to LA for a year to the Chargers. But I think that's really the question. Can he solve those issues for Jalen Hurts against the blitz? Because if he can, I think everything else is going to be cake for Philadelphia. They addressed the secondary, the cornerback situation, which I think was big. They took some guys in the draft. You got Gardner Johnson back there at safety. The offense, you got Barkley, good running backs, but handling the blitz and also that third wide receiver spot, just because, Brown and Smith haven't really missed any time. If they do, it's going to be a lot more important that number 3 spot. And right now it's John Ross it's Johnny Wilson, a rookie, and it is Paris Campbell. So that could get a little dicey for Philadelphia, because you would want their third wide receiver to be kind of like a Ross or Campbell type guy who can get open quick. I don't know if those guys really can, but theoretically a guy like that, so that they can have more options. But I think Saquon will help a little bit. And I do think Howie Roseman addressed the roster as well as he could, given the situation. And if you look at the schedule, because they didn't win that division, you get a little bit of a break with the second place schedule instead of the first place schedule. So I'm high on Philadelphia. I think this is the year you kind of way back on Dallas a little bit. We know how that goes in the NFC East, but the Eagles are favored in 13 of their 17 games. So I do think that they cruise to this division title.
Simon, I imagine you have a million thoughts on this team. I want to start with Raybon's comment about the blitz. Do you see that as the key they need to fix, or is there something else?
No, I think they fixed that. I just think it was all like, again, I can't believe Sirianni kept his job. That was so fireable. The fact that he couldn't get that adjustment in there. Kellen Moore, everything you've seen, the adjustments been made. We have some of the biggest issue. We had no motion, Chad, and when there was no motion, the blitz would set up, and they already knew what we were running. Like we were running 4 to 5 different plays. So I threw out last year. My biggest issue was always going to be, can we cover the middle of the field? Can Cam Jurgens step in and command this offense? Because you just said it, Kelsey. He's a Hall of Famer, and even Lane Johnson talked about it. Like, I think I saw a quote 2 days ago. It's weird not having his voice out there. Like, it's going to be weird not having the anchor, the man that's been there for so long. But Cam Jurgens is handpicked by who other than Kelsey. Kelsey's been in practice every day, working with him, training with him, and he was our guard for the last 2 years. So it's like the guy knows the offense. He knows what's the run. He knows the calls. It's just obviously, like you just said, Chad, it's an added pressure to it. But my biggest issue with this team will always be the linebacker position. Howie, he goes cheap in different areas. That's his move, and it works, right? Howie's one of the best teams in football, and that's where he likes to go cheap as middle linebacker and outside linebacker. I think Fangs is the one that said it. The most important position in the NFL the last 3 years has been outside linebacker. You look at the best teams in football, Chad, they usually have a really good outside linebacker. It's a big deal. So, did they fix those issues, Chad? We'll see if they can cover the middle of the field. That's my only real question here. Like Chris just said, it's an issue who the Eagles' third receiver is on offense. That's a great place to be. I'm feeling pretty good if that's one of our big issues, our third receiver. So it's like this team is built to win now, and the NFC, we're all praying. I already said it last week. We're praying this Ayuk trade goes down. If you're a fan of a team in the NFC, you want Ayuk off that team. Go send him to nowhere Steelers. Let him go play with them. Please get him off the 49ers, because he is one of the best blocking wide receivers in football. And no one gets open. I mean, his success rate of getting open, Chad, is out of this world. Like, people don't realize how good Ayuk is. Even when he's being double bracketed, he still finds holes in the zone. So this Eagles team right now, to me, if it all works out right now, this team doesn't have anyone holding out. Everyone's healthy heading into the season. I probably would move them over in my power rankings above the 49ers team and put the Lions right behind them, because it's like,
wow,
right now, the 49ers are having all these issues, Chad, and I keep being like, well, it's not that big of a deal. What are we, 3 weeks out now? This is starting to become a big deal. We saw Nick Bosa held out. He wasn't right till week 7, 8. Like, you need these periods. You need the ramping up of the season. So this Eagles team, to me, the biggest question are going to be the linebackers and the coaches. Right now, I'm pretty confident in these coaches, what I've seen in practice. The linebackers, I still need time, Chad. It's like I don't really know until the bullets start flying what this team's going to be like at the linebacker position.
It's interesting you mentioned the linebackers. I remember specifically, we talked about this on the show. Raybon and Stuckey talked about it on their show. When we were looking at the Niners going to play the Eagles in that December game, right, where the Eagles had just played an overtime game against the Bills, we started handicapping that game immediately. And we all liked the Niners in that game. The Niners were going to be short. I can't remember if they were short favorites or short dogs in that game.
Almost positive they were favorites.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. But we still like them as favorites. The reason we like them is because the Eagles could not cover the middle of the field. That was an Achilles heel for that team all season long. You mentioned Fangs, Vic Fangio, new defensive coordinator, legendary, respected, beloved. I got to think he will find ways to mask these deficiencies a lot better than the sort of buffet of bad defensive coordinators they had coming in last year, ending with Matt Patricia. You got to believe that. Like
Yeah,
in any business, you sort of have to decide something is going to be, and you have to believe you can do it.
that's what I mean. There was no fix. So like this year, this team, when I'm looking at them, I'm just like, to me in this division, these are my biggest bets. I'm the most confident. This is the only division me and Chad have been right on every year we've done this show. And we're not even doing anything special, people. We've literally gone Dallas, Eagles since I joined the show. Last year, we used a lot of our luck up. I cannot believe we hit that Dallas bet. And we joked about it. We thought it was dead. I think it
So
was
true.
Eagles were 10-1. I think we were just coming off back-to-back really bad losses with Dallas. We're like, oh well, basically they need to win out and maybe lose one game. The Eagles need to lose out and maybe only win one game, and that's exactly what happened. So this year, I feel way confident betting this number. The only negative here is we bet plus 130, plus 120. I mean, for the last 2 months, and then just in the last 3 weeks, this line is now up to minus 120, like you just said, a lot of books. So you missed that a little bit. Still love the over, obviously, 10.5. Don't hate it if you want to put 15-1, but I did what Chad did last year. If you listen earlier, I like the Chiefs. Obviously, I'm betting on the three-peat. I love to bet on history. Eagles Chiefs matchup Super Bowl. I got it at 40-1. So if you want to do something fun like that, you can do that. If you don't like taking the 15-1, but I have no issue taking the 15-1. But I did Chad's bet. I took them 40-1 against the Chiefs. And I put another bet on them against the Bengals. I think it was 55-1 Eagles Bengals. So that's a fun way to bet that stuff if you want longer odds.
Yeah, just a preview for people who will listen to our best bets episode, which will be the last week before NFL season kicks off. Simon and I will run through sort of our favorite futures bets. And annually, one of my favorite bets is round robining the best odds, usually 12-1 or under in 10 of the past 11 years. The teams with those odds have met in the Super Bowl. So last year it was the Chiefs and the Niners both had lower than 12-1 odds, but the payout on their Super Bowl win was something like 35-1. So I will bet that, and that is an Evan Abrams special. I'm going to expand it this year because I think the Bengals are 13-1, the Eagles are 15-1. So we'll get into that for sure. All right. Speaking of the Cowboys, I can't think of a team that I'm fading harder than the Cowboys that has mismanaged everything since before kickoff of their rout in a loss to the Packers in the playoffs, where all three of us were all over the Packers as 7-point underdogs. That game was over with about 3 minutes past. Dallas 19-1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 150 to win the division, 10.5 win total, 11th hardest strength of schedule. O-line is 10th entirely because of Zach Martin and Tyler Smith. Their tackles are suspect with Tyron Smith and Terrence Steele. Tyron Smith gone, Terrence Steele coming off a down year. They also have a new center. D-line is 6th, but a lot of this is about Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, right? So between the two of them, they make up for a lot of issues in the rest of that defensive line. Everything about this team screams flashy, overvalued, built for the regular season. Dak barely made our top 10 list of quarterback. We hate Mike McCarthy. Now CeeDee Lamb is holding out. Simon, I hate this team.
Yeah, and it's all negative. Like everything about it's like even their own fans have not been going to their camp, which is shocking. Like usually they're always a sellout, all the fans show up. And this year, even them are not that they're out on the team. I think they're just out on Jerry Jones, right? I think they're pissed at him because it's like, why'd you not just get this done with Dak and CD? Why'd you not just get this done with? It's like the options out there aren't gonna be much better unless you totally tank the next 2 years and try to find your own Caleb Williams. It's like these guys just don't pop up. It's pretty insane with the move they're making right now. We already talked about it. Like Dak has all the power. If he walks this year, they got like over 50 million in dead cap next year. That's a crazy number to think. They're just gonna have a guy walk and that kind of money's on the book. So every day I wake up, I honestly feel like I fall for the trap of, oh, they just signed CD or they just signed Dak to a big contract because I just been waiting for it to happen. And it just feels like it's not happening. Every day the sound bites get worse from Jerry Jones, Chad. So the team on the field, I think you nailed it, right? they have some questions now on the offensive line, which we haven't had in the past. You know, if CD does miss time, who are they throwing to? Go through their depth chart at wide receiver. It's a lot of really heavy questions there. So they desperately need CD back. And you know, I don't know if Chris loves this guy, but I think his name's Rico, this running back. I kind of love him. I kind of think he's going to be the guy over Ezekiel Elliott, and there are touches there to be had. But defensively, I think you talked about it, Chad. It feels like they extremely overachieved last year, and they're going to pay the piper this upcoming season just because they haven't really improved that defensive side at all. They just kind of let it ride back. And you know, when I'm looking at this team, 10.5. I've just talked to. I want to say I've spoken to every bookmaker that, you know, in the greater tri-state area over the last 2 months. It's all under money on this team. They've just been getting tons and tons of under money on this win total. So this is going to be one of the sports books' larger positions on win totals. They're going to need this team's over. I just think they had hung the bad number, Chad. Like, to me, this 10.5 made sense last year when this division was so weak.
Yeah.
The division feels like it's improved like tremendously from the Commanders to the Giants. So, you know, to me, 10.5, still too high of a number. I do like that under. And obviously, we're not touching anything for them divisionally or Super Bowl odds.
This is a weird, everything about this is a weird public number to me. The 19-1 is a public number. The plus 150 is public. The 10.5 is public. It's all screaming bookmakers are just looking to take advantage of people who love the Cowboys.
Love the Cowboys. I feel like those people are gone and they didn't adjust for that.
Raybon, are you about to tell us right now? I love the Cowboys.
Nah, I don't. But it is anytime the market is so overwhelmingly negative. I think as a bettor, you kind of have to at least consider the
it's scary.
contrarian,
it's scary.
The other side. But for me, I just think the Cowboys have a wide range of outcomes because, for one, they're still favored in 14 of their 17 games, but really 4 of those are essentially a pick 'em. It's, you know, the spread is -1, or some are even a pick 'em depending what book you're looking at. So there is a situation, like a scenario where the Cowboys finish, you know, 9-8, 8-9, even, especially remember, you know, a couple years ago, Dak Prescott missed some games. That's happened a couple of times. If they lose Dak, you know, Simon, you said it, CeeDee Lamb's really their only guy at receiver. You know, Rico Dowdle at running back. I mean, I don't think he's going to make a difference one way or another. I mean, running backs generally don't, you know. Howard wasn't great last year coming off that injury anyway, but I did like what McCarthy did somewhat down the stretch after the bye where they kind of went super pass heavy, but I don't know if that's going to be an option this year with just CeeDee. And remember, you know, it's not very likely that CeeDee continues to just not ever miss games due to injury either. So I think this team is very fragile, would not bet any overs on them. And I am concerned about that tackle situation because you had Chuma Adoga, the veteran, getting snaps at left tackle, and he looks like he just got hurt. So now you're going to have to go with the rookie Guyton at left tackle. And Chad, you mentioned Steele was pretty shaky. He ranked 69th of 81 qualified tackles at Pro Football Focus in terms of their grading last season. So Dak Prescott under pressure with just one receiver that really is going to be reliably get open. I mean, maybe Jake Ferguson continues to step up, but I just, you know, they don't have the running game. They have one bona fide receiver. They don't have tackles, and the coach is shaky. So not a lot to love for Dallas, especially when you put the Cowboys side by side against the Philadelphia Eagles. So yeah, it's all about the Eagles this year. I think the Cowboys could suffer from that NFC East first place jinx.
Yeah, they've built a team that is designed to win in the regular season and over the past several years. And I don't even think they're designed to do that now, given the offensive line issues, given what's going on with CeeDee Lamb. Like, let me give you some stats, right? CeeDee Lamb is not only coming off one of his best years, one of the best wide receiver seasons ever. There have only been 2 seasons of receivers with 130 plus receptions, 1,700 plus receiving yards, 12 plus receiving touchdowns. 2021 Cooper Kupp, 2023 CeeDee Lamb. If this guy's not on the field, they don't really have probably about 80% of their passing offense. So there's some serious issues there. And to my point about the Cowboys being a regular season team, highest average win total the past 20 years to not win a Super Bowl. Cincinnati Bengals, 8.1. San Francisco 49ers, 8.1. Minnesota Vikings, 8.2. Falcons, 8.3. Chargers, 8.9. Number one, Dallas Cowboys, 9.2.
What a brutal list to be on. Damn. You've
I
just done
know,
so much
right?
winning for nod.
So much.
I remember their
winning
last
for
Super Bowl. That was
nothing.
like the first Super Bowl that I, as a kid, I really remember just the whole lead up to it and you know, watching them like simulate it with Madden in 1995, and then they go out and just spank the Steelers. Neil O'Donnell could not keep up with that Cowboy defense and whatnot. But yeah, it's been rough. And you know, even Chad, you mentioned a pass offense. I mean, Brandon Cooks is still there. We shouldn't just shit on him, but he's going to be 31. So
He's had a tough time staying healthy, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, not necessarily healthy, but I think you worry about him just because he's a smaller guy and he has had some concussion issues. So yeah, he's not a guy that you necessarily expect to go back to being the wide receiver one that he was at times earlier in his career. So yeah, it just feels very fragile for the Cowboys this year.
True story, Raybon. I know I'm showing my age. I covered that Steelers Cowboys Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game the week before when I think it was Larry Brown had multiple interceptions.
No, that was Super Bowl.
He did it. Well, he had an interception in the AFC in the championship game, and then in the next game, and I had to write for Sports Illustrated a little sidebar about the play that led to the interception in the NFC Championship game. And I asked Antonio Freeman what the play was in the locker room after the game. And I said to him, look, I know you weren't on the field, but I saw you standing next to Holmgren. Can you tell me about the play? He goes, well, I wasn't on the field. I'm like, I know, but you know, I need to do a story about it. He knew who I was. I'd been to Green Bay a bunch. And he goes, you got to do a news chronicle for Sports Illustrated? I'm like, yeah, I got to do a news chronicle. And then he wouldn't answer my question. So I went to Adam Timmerman. And Adam Timmerman started telling me what everything was. I got everything I needed. Then Antonio Freeman came up to me in the locker room before I was leaving and started to get in my face and like, what am I going to do? Right. But Adam Timmerman pulled him back from trying to kill me in the locker room.
First of all, great story. And those are some amazing name drops. Like I was more of a Robert Brooks, Dorsey Levens guy myself on that Packers squad, but by the way, Freeman was a beast too.
Hey, Dorsey Levens, I was on the sideline for the Patriots Packers Super Bowl that the Packers won, and Dorsey Levens knocked me over when he ran out.
What?
Like, he ran out of bounds, and I was behind a cameraman, and we both got knocked over, and I didn't feel great the rest of that night. And it was in New Orleans.
I was gonna say he didn't even feel you.
I don't like he didn't feel anything, right?
No.
And so I go to back to my hotel that night, super late night, right? And I'm not feeling great. I start puking the rest of the night. I think I might have had a concussion. Like he knocked the fuck out of me.
Oh my God.
On the sideline.
So I don't know if you get to hear my phone going crazy, Chad. Apparently Jordan Addison, the number 2 receiver on the Vikings, just went down with an injury. He's being helped off the field by trainers. It's like truly a season from hell for the Vikings fans right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel terrible for the Vikings. I feel terrible for Kevin O'Connell. He seems like a really good coach. I want him to be able to succeed there. I hope this doesn't become a season where everything is so bad they feel like they have to start over. Give him the chance to make some magic with what this roster is becoming.
I think they will. I don't think they'd move on from after this year. Even if they were terrible, I don't think they'd move on.
Hey, if we got no Jordan Addison for any length of time, we already probably won't have TJ Hawkinson to start the year, and Addison could get suspended even if he's not hurt. So the fact that we're also out on JJ's out means if Darnold struggles, we're going to get us some Nick Mullins. And you know who that's really good for? Justin Jefferson to
Yep.
lead the league in receiving yards, because Nick Mullins will throw 500 air yards in a game, complete like 350 of them, throw 4 picks, but JJ will put up like 100. JJ, if you take out the game that he got hurt and a game that he came back last year, JJ averaged 127 receiving yards per game. If you do that over the full season, you're running away with that crown. So, yeah, Justin Jefferson definitely might be worth a bet here, depending on what's going on with Addison, because he would be an absolute target hog, even if the quarterback is substandard.
Washington Commanders. I feel like I'm misreading something here. The Washington Commanders 120 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 800 to win the division. 6.5 is the win total. 13th easiest strength of schedule. O-line rank 27. 60% of the offensive line is new. At left tackle, protecting Jaden Daniels' blind side, they are relying on a career backup in Cornelius Lucas. Defensive line 19th. There was a time where this was a top 4 defensive line with Montez Sweat and Chase Young, not that long ago. I think this line is too high, even with their current talent level. The big signing, Dorrance Armstrong from Dallas, whose career high in sacks during 6 years, 8.5. Knew everything. Coach, QB, O-line, D-line coordinators. I mean, I don't get the market numbers here. I don't understand why. Like, Raybon, you already said the Commanders would be your sort of long shot here. Mm-hmm. None of this makes sense to me.
All right. So, first of all, the Commanders were 4-13 last year. They employed Ron Rivera, Eric Bieniemy, and Jack Del Rio as their head coach and offensive and defensive coordinators, respectively. So they needed everything new. So that's a good thing. Second of all, the main difference, if you want to get really simple, between Washington and the New York Giants is that Washington has a chance to have a quarterback. It's as simple as that. That's football. Both of these rosters, shaky, like you said, Chad. Although I think Washington has the better roster than the Giants. I mean, yes, the offensive line is maybe a little bit unsung, but it's not a disaster. Like, I think it can be serviceable, like, somewhere around league average. They got Terry McLaurin, who's already established. The Giants have a rookie trying to fill that role. Jaden Daniels, I would say, already better than Daniel Jones. The Giants' backup quarterback, they couldn't even get that right. Drew Lock looked terrible in his preseason snaps. The Giants have no secondary. Washington has no secondary, but I think Washington has more upside because you still have, maybe Forbes can get it together. He was a first-round pick. You got I struggled to pronounce his name, but the slot corner who they took in the second round out of Michigan this year, Cyrus still. I think it's how you pronounce it, but they do have some upside here. Jeremy Chin is an interesting guy. He flashed in Carolina at times. So just up and down the roster, I think Washington just has more upside. Eckler, Robinson, pretty good running back duo. Ertz and Sano at tight end. So there's still positions. They have Bobby Wagner in the middle and Luvu. So at least Simon, if you like linebackers, I mean, Washington at least has linebackers finally. When I look at this roster, I think it's better than the Giants, but more than anything, Washington could have a quarterback. It's simple as the Texans handicap last year. It's like, well, if you didn't know who to take on the bottom of that division, it was the Colts or Texans because they potentially have quarterbacks, and this year, I'm not really a believer in Daniel Jones, and Dabo is going to be calling plays now for the Giants. And I remember when Ben McAdoo was all the rage for, a few evenings in New York, and then he started calling his own plays, and that's just tough as a head coach, adding responsibilities here. So I don't like what the Giants are doing. I don't love Washington, but I think Washington has in its range of outcomes a chance at success, and especially with, if Dallas flounders or Dak gets hurt or something's up with CD and Jaden Daniels really hits the ground running, he could really transform that team and that culture. Because remember, that's what they really need in Washington is a culture reset, with all the ownership issues. And then, Ron Rivera, I think, got pretty stale. Jack Del Rio got pretty stale. Eric Bieniemy, never really, was getting jobs before this. And I don't think he was that great either. So I just think the change is good for Washington and staying, and the changes the Giants made, I'm not really thrilled about.
Ben McAdoo unforgivably benched Eli Manning
For Geno
and
Smith.
ended his long-running, record-setting quarterback starting streak for one game for Geno Smith. He should have been fired that second for that. I think it took about 2 seconds. Simon,
I'm just gonna say I looked in because I was incredulous about it too. McAdoo is like a hired gun. Really, the guy to blame, and I've written about this for Action Network, is Mara. Mara has no idea what's going on, and he has no idea that the people working for him have no idea what's going on. I blame Mara. I blame the GM, and they really haven't. I think Dabo's solid, but I still think the front office is shaky.
We're going to go deep into the Giants because I think there's a public perception thing going on here. And so because of Hard Knocks, and we had Lombardi on, and Lombardi railed against Joe Shane and how he made GMs look and how he managed some of that situation. But Simon, give me your take on the Commanders.
Yeah, the fear of the Commanders is that Jaden Daniels will be dead by week 5. That's the fear, Chad.
That's it, right? Like they didn't. Why did he not invest in getting a guy to protect him?
All of it though. Like even when I talk to professionals, it's like who's the OC Kingsbury? It's like that guy. He flashes, then all of a sudden his offense gets figured out, and he's dog shit. Like there you go, Chad. A real dog shit.
There you go.
Yeah, that's just the fear here because it's like I love the upside of this team. Like Chris just talked about, like this is a fun, exciting team because they brought in new coaches and he could change the culture, right? We see it all the time. The quarterback comes in and the players around him believe in that quarterback. It does change the culture. We've seen it time and time again. But this ain't my team. The Giants are my team. So I just couldn't get there with this team at 6.5 because I do believe in the Giants. I wanted to take both these teams over, but I had this team right at 6 wins, Chad. So it's like I'm not really betting this one. I only have it half a game under the win total. I can't get there where there's just still too many questions. And you talk about the biggest issue for me is that they sold off that D line. Like they didn't really replace it. They don't really have guys that can put pressure on other teams when they are going to be behind. They need to have pass rushers and guys that can stop the run. And they kind of given that up, but they do have good linebackers, which could correct some of those weaknesses. But too much is there. Too many questions. Even in this couple of weeks of preseason, their secondary, they are bad. Man, are they bad. Washington secondary is really bad. So we'll get to why I love the Giants. I think the biggest difference is just the guys in the trenches. Like we talk about the D-lines all the time. The Giants do have a really good D-line where I really can't find what makes this Washington team so special.
Before you get into it, let me cut you off because we'll just talk about these two teams in tandem. But let me at least set up the Giants' numbers. 150 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 1,300. So 13 to 1 to win the division. Also 6.5 wins like the Commanders. O-line ranked 29th. And like, this was the crux of the Hard Knocks offseason series. The Giants did not pursue Saquon because they were so focused on improving the offensive line and helping Daniel Jones. They brought in 2 new guards, highlighted by John Runyon, probably long in the tooth. They need a better year from Andrew Thomas, who is progressing to be elite. What they really need is Evan Neal to play like the number 1 pick he was in 2022.
I don't think he will.
That's over. It's over.
Okay.
It's over. I think it's going to be a Luminor. Honestly, I think it's over.
Well, Neal has already been struggling and there's been injury things, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the preseason. I thought Lombardi was great on the show last week, being so honest about Joe Shane and how he could be on the right side of history here, which I believe he is with the Saquon move, but the way he handled it was terrible. And I think, Raybon, that might be influencing you and the Giants. But Simon, I'm surprised you're believing more in the Giants.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part of my job, though, is like even months ago when I was begging people in our best ball draft, we said, I love the Giants stack. You could have gotten Neighbors in the 5th and 6th round when I was talking about him. Like that dude right now, Chad, he's an end of the 2nd, early 3rd round pick. So the public now has shifted where they're believing in him just because he's killing it in camp. Daniel Jones, not so much. I mean, he's gotten better. I think he was just rusty when he first came out there. And these last couple of weeks, he struggled the first 2 weeks of camp. This past week, he has everything I've read. He's been more accurate, more consistent on his deep ball. Even though the young wide receiver Hyatt's looked better, getting more comfortable with him. It's just there are pieces there that I can get excited about. And the biggest thing is I've seen Daniel Jones do it. Like I've seen him somehow get this team to a playoff game and win a playoff game. And it's like I get where people are coming from. In his career, he's had one season, I believe, with over 20 touchdown passes. Like that's terrifying, Chad. Like that is, I'm not gonna lie, the betting that is scary, but it is just me betting on this D line. Like I just think they have such a good D line that if they can just figure it out a little bit on offense, if they can really flip those one-score games, which I think that's what makes Debo a great coach. Like Dabo, the year they had that run, he was incredible in close games. Like that's why we faded them the next year because we are just like, they can't repeat that. The same thing with the Vikings. We're like, the Vikings couldn't repeat that, and they didn't. I do think they have the squad this year to go 8-9, 9-8. Like that to me feels like their ceiling.
Wow.
So looking at 6.5, I'm taking the over. But like we just talked about, if they're 0-4 and Daniel Jones has three touchdowns and 9 interceptions on the season, none of us are going to be shocked. It's Daniel Jones. It's like it's the reason most fans of their team think this is the last year of his contract. Right after this year, they pay him the $40 million. They'll move on. That wouldn't shock anybody. But I just like what this team has in place. The biggest question, I think Chris just nailed it. It's like, what are we going to get from this offensive line? That to me is the biggest question here.
So right now I'm looking up, and while I do this, I'm looking up the lines for week 1 because, Simon, we liked the Giants as home dogs against the Vikings in week 1.
They might be favoring now, but I'm assuming they're still a 1-point dog.
They're still 1-point dogs. So
yeah.
If this feels like a go and grab it situation because the Giants
feels like that game's going to make or break my win total bets on both teams.
Exactly. Right. And this feels like the moment is now because the stats will all tell you, and we're going to get deeper into this when we get into week 1. You want to be betting the short home favorites in week 1. And you want to get it before they become, the short home dogs, and you want to get it before they become the short home favorite. Simon, you were about to say that you like their defensive line. Their defensive line, according to PFF, is ranked 18th. To me, that feels low. Like Dexter Lawrence alone, he's the highest graded interior D lineman in the league. He was 3 points higher than Aaron Donald last year. Now they've added Brian Burns, who may make Kayvon Thibodeau even more effective. Like, even though he had flashy stats last year, he only had 43 quarterback pressures. So
yeah,
I agree with you about the defensive line. Raybon, does that influence any of your thinking? Does anything we've said influence you?
Nah, I just think this team, every year there's a team that I look at and I just disagree with how they philosophically think about football. Last year it was the Carolina Panthers. Frank Reich, Fitterer agreed with pretty much zero of their moves. I'm starting to feel that same way about Joe Schoen because when I look at all of the moves in totality that this Giant team has made since he took over, they signed Daniel Jones to that big contract. Silly. They whiff on Evan Neal. They have already spent 2 day 3 picks on undersized wide receivers that are not better than a holdover, really, in Darius, at least not more productive than a holdover, Darius Slayton, who they keep trying to bench, but he keeps outplaying all their other receivers. Then they go and they spend big money on a linebacker, and Bobby Okereke is great, but he's a linebacker. Like, it's just not smart salary allocation. Okay, fine, whatever. They overachieve a couple in Daboll's first year. Last year, everything goes to shit. And
Poopy.
You kind of
it goes to poopy.
you saw Dabo unravel. You saw him literally, or if it wasn't Dabo had coached Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo, and somehow these guys could not get to get. I think they overlapped. I'm not even sure about that now that I think about it. But either way, the fact that he couldn't get it communicated that Tyrod Taylor was not to throw the football, they essentially threw away a game. They could have beat Buffalo. we saw Dable just unraveling multiple times on the sidelines. And now he's going to call his own plays, adding, another task to his plate where this roster, like, sure, they got a nice D line, but I always thought Burns was a little overrated. I mean, he's great, but for what they paid for him, I think he's a little overrated. Kayvon Thibodeau has more name value than actual production, in my opinion. I mean,
that's fair.
So you're really talking about two great offensive linemen, Lawrence and Burns. Thibodeau, in theory, should be one. And then your secondary is, you're really counting on Deonte Banks to make a massive year 2 leap. And that could happen. He was a first round pick out of Maryland last year, but you still got question marks at the other 4 starting secondary spots. I mean, Belton and Pinnock are your safeties. Phillips, Slot, or, even other guys that no one has heard of are your other cornerbacks. You just kind of patchwork in the line with, guards who, may or may not even be upgrades over what they had. They still have not figured out the center position, and the guy that guys that they're signing to play center are not even working out, and they're not even getting the reps there anymore. Like, everything to me with this team is there's a disconnect between what the front office thinks about, who these players are and what they actually are. And it's like, even the way we're going to go out and draft a weapon for Daniel Jones because we can't draft a quarterback, but we were trying to trade up to number 3 to get Drake May, who I feel like they just lumped Drake May in with Daniels and Caleb Williams. Like, no, there's a big, I think, teardrop from the number 2 to number 3. So the fact that they were even willing to bet the farm on Drake May, like, that in itself is a worry. So nothing that the Giants have done, in my opinion, has been smart, and nothing has really added to them, in my opinion, being able to win more games. Like, you have a defensive line, but you're going to overwork them. Everything's going to be on them because their secondary is not going to be able to hold up. So it might be all for naught. And let's say one of those guys misses a couple games here and there. Let's say Burns misses or Lawrence misses. Like, now you're back to one great defensive lineman, one okay one with a lot of potential, a shitty secondary, some expensive linebacker that can only do so much. A guy it's just, I just don't like this team at all. I think this is going to be a terrible team.
You know what the problem is? I just want Raybon to tell us how he feels. Like, I don't feel like I'm getting a real
Daniel Jones stinks.
I think he's got about 5 wins. That's what I'll take that from that.
I mean, this could be the worst team in the National Football League this year. This team, I feel like Dable spoiled us. He kind of, they massively overachieved in that first year. And there's anchoring bias, right? Because that was our first impression of Dable. And I think he's fine, but I don't think, and Mara, that's a big problem, because you saw, if you watch Hard Knocks, how Mara was always in the office with Shane, and I'm sure that's hanging over Shane and influencing some of these silly decisions in themselves. But why would you not address cornerback when you have to guard CeeDee Lamb, the leading receiver in the National Football League, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, both of those twice a year, Terry McLaurin with a new rookie quarterback? I just don't understand how you don't address cornerback in the secondary. Then you're like, oh yeah, well, I'll have to suit up and play corner, is what is Joe Shane's joking. That's not a joke. This is going to get bad really fast. And we don't even know if Daniel Jones is the guy. By the way, all the draft picks were for need. So yeah, you lucked into Neighbors because you had the number 6 pick because you stunk last year. But after that, it was like, oh well, so we need a tight end. So let's go get this guy. And we need a safety. So he was the last guy we would take there that we could start. And then they freaking. It seems like they don't even know who their good players are. It's like, let's draft another running back and already put him, number 2 on the depth chart in Tyrone Tracy. And then Eric Gray, the guy you drafted last year, is the guy that's playing the best. So it's like, I don't think they self-scout well, clearly. And I just think the bottom is going to fall out from this team. And Daniel Jones, he's a known quantity at this point too. He's not the worst quarterback in the league. He can run a little, he can make some throws, but he's not going to win you games. He's not winning you games. And that's what this team needs. It needs a Jaden Daniel type quarterback that's going to win you games. And I'm just not convinced that they have that. And even their backup, like they might have to start Tommy DeVito again. Like this team could be so bad. Like I can't believe you guys don't see that shit. Like this team is they got a great defensive line, big whoop.
Simon, right now, I'm betting the Giants worst team in the NFL.
There you
Are
go.
you?
I feel like Raybon just did an excellent job of convincing me. It was like a
Well,
good,
it's his favorite team. That's why.
yeah, it was a good.
Nah, but I'm high on the Giants at times. Like
No, but
honest,
you can feel.
man. Like,
what
I know
you
you know too
Raybon.
much though. That's your problem right
yeah, I know.
You
But
feel the passion right now.
yeah.
Like he is so deep in this thing. It's what happens when your team is on Hard Knocks. You are like, I'm still upset that that Bears kid who stripped down to his undies got hurt in that first preseason game. Okay, so
Yeah.
like I understand the emotion Raybon is playing with here. But listen, as a precursor to our Convince Me show, you fucking convinced me on the Giants. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, they're gonna
It feels like
this
you were
year.
taking over 6.5, Simon. So
I mean, I love the over. I'm not going to fight you guys on it. It's definitely one of these teams where it's like I just said it. They could, like Chris said, they could be one of the worst teams of football. None of us would be shocked. They're
it
just,
doesn't feel like to me, like as I want to run down our favorite bets here, I'm really only coming away with a consensus.
I feel like
Maybe
Eagles Cowboys. I mean, that's pretty damn good, Chad. That's pretty
Bet the
convincing.
Eagles, fade the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But it's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Simon, you're not gonna want to in like week 6. You're not gonna want to look at your bankroll and see. And I know you're a big bettor. You're not gonna want to see like 5-6 figures on Daniel Jones instead of Jaden Daniels. Like you're just gonna be like,
I don't know,
why did
bro.
I do it? Why
I
did
love
I do
him.
it to
Daniel Jones with the
myself?
beard.
Nah, that's Matt Eberflus is the only dude that can switch his whole swag up with the beard. Like Daniel, man.
I know. No, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, bro. You can't convince me. I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm in on the Giants. I'm bad.
All right.
I fucking love this though. This is great. So Raybon would probably lean. Forget about Eagles and Cowboys for a second. Raybon, you give me a Commanders bet. Are you saying you would like to be over on the Commanders at 6.5, or do you not have any bets on the Commanders at this point?
I would say I still think the NFC is going to be a gauntlet. Both conferences, just because there's I think like 10, 11
Just
legit
give me
contenders.
an answer.
So
Don't
all right, so
hesitate.
I don't like the win total over. I would, if I'm betting the Commanders, I want to bet big. So my favorite Commanders bet is Jaden Daniels, offensive rookie of the year, plus 475. I have him projected to be a better fantasy quarterback than Caleb Williams because of the rushing upside. And if he's statistically better than Caleb Williams, even if Williams throws for more yards, Daniels will have a shot to win that award. So I like that. And then I think long shot Commanders division at 9-1, because we know it's probably not going to be the Cowboys given the NFC East history. And if for some reason, maybe Jalen Hurts gets hurt for an extended period, or, if something goes wrong with the Eagles, I think the Commanders are in position to pounce, because again, Jaden Daniels, just like you saw Stroud do, and we've seen countless rookie quarterbacks do in years past, he could change his whole culture, and he could single-handedly be responsible for this team turning from a terrible team to an average or even a slightly above average team as soon as this year. So that's how I'm looking at the Commanders. I want no parts of I just don't see that for Daniel Jones. So I'm thinking the Commanders may finally just start hammering the Giants, because the Giants usually have the edge in those matchups for some reason. But yeah, I think long shot Commanders bets is what I want. So Jaden Daniels and the long shot division.
Simon, I will give you the Giants over 6.5.
Yeah, Giants over 6.5. And if you really make me bet on Washington, I'm just slightly towards the under at 6 wins.
All right. That was exciting. The end of that, I did not expect it to go that way at the end. So I like we got a little Commanders Giants drama here. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Simon and I are back with our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page Tuesday, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, to talk AFC West. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars. Say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Till next time, love you.